Coming up on today's episode, we journey through the perspective of a young single black mother by the name of Berttina Shabala. She opens up on the impact that falling pregnant at a young age had on her future plans, dealing with depression and rising against all the odds to create a bright, successful future for her and her family. Welcome to the Colorful Layers podcast, platform for unfiltered women conversations. My name is Khomotso Taji, but you can just call me Moto. I'm a former radio broadcaster with a love for storytelling. Join me each week as we plug up the courage to peel through life's sometimes beautiful or messy, but always colorful life stories and experiences with amazing women from various walks of life. Hello, everybody. Baya danki kyalebokhanya bonga. Thank you so much for tuning in to another Colorful Layers episode. I really hope that you are doing well. We are in the last stretch of July as I record this episode, and what a wow. What an eventful few weeks we have had as not only citizens of the world, but specifically South Africa. Words like, I hope you are keeping safe, or please keep safe, have been the words repeated on text, emails, Zoom, as well as face-to-face conversations, because just outside of having to protect ourselves from a pandemic, parts of our country were burning as buildings were set on fire, companies looted, and lives lost. Racial tensions that we have always suspected or known existed rose to the surface, while opportunistic criminal forces added to the flames that were felt by those constantly devoured by the poverty that plagues citizens of this country. Being fortunate enough to only watch these harrowing scenes from news channels and reporters' perspectives, at some point I really felt as though I was watching the beginning stages of scenes from Marlon Brando's 1969 film Burn. Everyone, as we know on social media, was up in arms, sharing their perspective and opinions about what was taking place. I saw a post on LinkedIn sharing the now well-known image of a young baby being thrown off a burning building by its mom. The poster shared how this image really captured the desperation of South Africans, but it also showcased the trust that the mother had in members of her community to catch her baby, which was a really good showcase of the acts of bravery and empathy that was also being demonstrated by our community in the midst of all of this mayhem. The work is definitely continuing as we begin to rebuild ourselves into the beautiful country we have the potential to be. So wherever you may be in South Africa right now or in the world, I just want to send you positive thoughts and prayers into your situation, however it has been affected by this pandemic, as well as your loved ones. On that note though, let's get into today's episode. It is titled A Single Mother's Perspective. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Colorful Layers podcast. The Colorful Layers podcast. My guest on today's episode is a smart young single mother. She is confident, outspoken, and ambitious. She continues to kick down doors as she makes her way up the corporate ladder, and she refuses to allow any of the challenges she has faced or continues to face to stop her goal. I immediately resonate with her story, being someone raised by a single parent. My mom having managed to raise 3 boys and myself single-handedly, a task I can assure you was not easy. Her story really then inspires me to, for the first time, jump into my mother's shoes and see things from her perspective. I have always related to this story from the perspective of I was raised by a single mother, but I've never actually thought of what my mom had to go through to get us to where we are now. I immediately start imagining myself being a young black and single parent and falling well within the 40% that the Human Sciences Research Council estimates make up single mothers in South Africa. I imagine the daily attempt at trying to balance a household, raise children, and while still having to deal with odds such as continued judgment from society or the discrimination in the workplace that is based on gender, race, as well as pay. And that's if you're fortunate enough to have a job, or the possible high school or university dropout rate, the financial struggle that comes with it all, and of course, the emotional impact. All of these are odds that are stacked up high against most single mothers. I'm immediately filled with gratitude that my mom did not allow all of this to break her. She definitely did not go into victim mode, but rather she fought hard to rise up, providing us with the best that she could do. Today's episode, while not trying to romanticize, aims to recognize, bring truth to the life of the perspective through the eyes of a young Black single parent. And it is definitely dedicated to the women who are responsible to raising a good portion of the country and the world's future single-handedly. No matter what your current situation may be right now, I hope that you will be inspired by this episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Colorful Layers podcast. Let's meet our guest today as she begins by introducing herself and opens up on the impact falling pregnant had on her plans to further her studies.
I'm well known in the corporate world as Bettina or BT. Berttina Shabala or BT, but it got as T. So I grew up, being known as T or Stebe. I grew up, born and bred in Joburg, Soweto, and I grew up in Orlando East. That's my hood, and really grew up with my grandmother, who raised like all of us. So it was my grandmother, my mom, my uncle, and my aunt, and obviously my siblings and my cousins. So we grew up in a really big household, really warm and really, one of those fun households. Right now, I've got 2 kids that I love so much, and I'm a working mother and a student or a candidate, as they would call it in the MBA. But yeah, that's me.
A successful working mother. I love that. In our chat earlier, you spoke about, how, still on the topic about, growing up, you grew up as one of those children that were bright, smart, and your family or your grandmother, she affirmed that. And also that is the thing that, I think you reap the reward of much later in life when coming across into a situation where you needed self-esteem or confidence. Can you tell us a little bit more about that part of your journey growing up?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I firstly started primary school at the age of 4. And when Papa, like I was, I was such a bright child. I was very short, and I mean, even if you see me now as an adult, I still have this round face and big cheeks. I've got big cheeks, and I was cute. But really, I was really a bright child. Well, at least from what my teachers and my family and my grandmother especially affirmed it.
The opportunity is presented to you, and then what happens?
So yeah, opportunity. I mean, here we are, matric. We're all writing exams. Like, her name is Riabet. And she's, Bettina, I need you to like breathe, eat, math, science, everything. Like you're going to make it. But anyway, she's like, so what do you want to do? I'm like, I've decided to do mining engineering. She's like, okay, cool. So where do we begin? Do you know the universities that have it? And the university that had it is UJ at the time. Doronfontein, and I was like, yeah, okay, cool, let me do this. And she's like, okay, just let me know how much it is and everything. And she was 27 at the time. And she's like, I'll help you out. I'll pay for your studies. And then, of course, we'll try and find NEFSAs and other things after that. But let's just focus on getting into the institution. Of course, I did, because,
transition into, you falling pregnant. Like, I mean, can you take us to the day? Like, I don't know if you still remember that exact day when you found out that you were pregnant. Like, where were you? How did you feel? And, what was going on?
I don't remember where I was. I don't remember what was happening, but I can remember the feeling, vividly on how I felt like it's over. This is it. Like it's gone. Like it's over. Like my life. I knew because we had an agreement with Uriah at the time. Should you? I mean, that was the only condition that she had. Only condition that she had. And she's like, should you fall pregnant? Unfortunately, we will have to, just completely shut this whole agreement that we have. I need you to just focus on school, and everything else should not, be on your plate.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Colorful Layers podcast. The Colorful Layers podcast. Coming up, Berttina opens up on dealing with depression. You now have to make really tough decisions, letting go of your dream to study, and start working. Can you take us through that phase, that journey in your life?
Yeah. So then I was like, okay, cool. I'm like, yeah, okay. Plan B. What do we do now? So I always have a possible. And I'm like, okay, plan B, what do I do? Now reality is kicking in, like you're bringing someone into the world. You are not studying, you are this, and geez, I was like, let me go look for a job. And I was very lucky at the time. It's 2007. 2007, but 2008. And it's recession. It's the recession time. People are losing their jobs, people are getting retrenched. Got lucky, got a learnership, and then I started working for one of the big banks. And that's literally where my career started.
So we're in a very interesting time right now. The world is dealing with a pandemic, and obviously the impact of how this has had on our lives, specifically in South Africa with the riots and so forth. So the topic has been mental health, in the forefront because of obviously the impact of what's happening. And what's interesting also is that you come across, data and stats that state that 74% of people with mental health issues actually remain untreated or even undiagnosed in developing countries. So I just want you to share with us, because you later on discovered that you had suffered from depression. This is obviously after you saw a counselor, but can you take us through that journey before you even knew, that this is depression? Like, what was happening during this phase of your life?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no. Yes, that was like the worst, like a dark hole time of my life. And, it kind of like builds up, because you just lose things overnight. So you lose your freedom to be a child. You lose I lost being a student. I lost, pursuing my dream. And, I had to find a job overnight. I had to, everything was just like too overwhelming, but I just kept going and kept pushing. And at that time, I didn't know that I was super depressed. So I used to sleep like 12, 14 hours, unless I go to work. I would wake up, go to work, but Friday, I wake up at 1. Like if I'm sleeping from Friday all the way to Saturday, non-stop, I'm sleeping for like 14 hours, 16 hours.
Sure.
I don't want to speak to people. I don't engage with families. I had my own room outside of the main house. And I was just like sleep in my own room, and I didn't want anyone to disturb me. And unconsciously so, obviously after having a conversation with the counselor, I just realized that at the time I was buying like dark clothes. So black, brown was my color. My room itself was just dark. From my bed, it was mahogany, everything. TV, everything was just dark, blinds. I mean that room, literally, if the blinds are not open, then it still looks like it's at night. So you can imagine.
Did anybody in the family, pick up that something wasn't right? And also, did that impact your relationship with your baby at that time or child?
I don't think anyone in the family picked it up. I think, they probably thought, she's like that. She just want to be left alone. But really, if they really, really had to think about it, I think someone could have picked it up, because I was a really, really fun person. I was outgoing. I was, loud. I was fun, man. I was a fun person. And overnight, I just, closing myself up in this room, and I just don't wanna speak to people. I just don't wanna engage. Like, yes, I just speak to you, but I'm always irritable. I'm always angry. I'm always like ready to fight. I'm always on the edge. No one picked it up. Definitely affect the relationship with my son, and those years. I mean, this lasted for 3 years. 3 years, and I can't tell you. And it affects the relationship with my son, but in a sense of I can't tell you whether my son crawled before he walked. I don't know.
Everything was like a blur.
Yeah, like, so everything during that time, it's just a blur. I just remember waking up, going to work, come back, sleeping. I was thin. I was very, very thin, because I didn't eat. I didn't eat much. I was just waking up, going to work. Okay, so yeah, so like you're like on autopilot, like you just like waking up, and like it's like your body knows you wake up at this time, you go, you do this, you do that. You have extremes. So you have that time where you're just like so sad, and then you have those times where you're like so happy for no reason, and you just want to do like you just want to have fun. But you're not like a normal human being. Like, you're just very extreme. When you're angry, you're like super angry. When you're happy, you're like super happy. When you're sad, you're like really, really, really sad. And yeah, like when you don't eat, you don't eat. When you eat, you really, really eat. It was just like so confusing, and like you just confuse your body, and your body just doesn't know what to do with you.
And I mean, it's interesting that you went through this for a whole 3 years, but you then mentioned that your breaking point or your turning point was, finding faith, or your faith that actually pulled you out of this space. Can you just take us through that?
Yeah. So I didn't obviously know that this was the space that I was in, but still continued and moved from one job to the other, and having to just try and find my feet in this corporate South Africa. And you make friends and you meet people, and like when it's time, when God just aligns people in your life, and He just wants you to meet these people. It just happens. And at the time, I got seconded into a senior position, and then I had a team. And there was someone, this guy, who now happens to be like my best friend now. He came and joined my team, and he was in my team, and yeah, we started talking together. And then the relationships, we started obviously getting to know each other, because I used to spend like at least 3 hours with this person every single day, because it's traffic. We are traveling to work, back from work, and all of that. And one day it's like, hey, like there's this prayer week at church. Do you want to join? I was like, okay, cool. What the hell? I'll come. And then I went, and from day one, I just like my life completely took a complete turn. And then I started my journey of time. It was different. Like, things changed, because then I understood the relationship with God, and I experienced Him. Like, I experienced it. Like, and really experienced, where your body feels sensations, where you just feel someone gives you a hug, like a really hot hug, and that was the first day when I went there. Like I just felt like someone just came behind me. I'm actually getting goosebumps just going through this again. Came behind me as I was like praying, and we're in the service. It felt like someone came behind me and gave me a hug, and my back was on fire because it was like hot, and it felt like, geez, and it began, and my life really transformed from. But my life just changed. Like I don't know how to even explain it. Like, it just changed. Like I just like felt like I had an out of body experience. Like I just went out of my body and I came back. And when I came back, I was a totally new person with no anger, with no sadness. I mean, I had like, oh my goodness, I had so much peace. So like I can't explain the peace that I had.
What then later encouraged you to, I guess, like later on in your life, to seek professional help? And, what did you receive from that?
That's a lot of bad things that happened. And I felt like, okay, you know what, let me someone. And then I started seeing a therapist. And then we started like to unlock not just, about that particular incident, but really like things that were like buried, for years. And when the greatest thing about therapy is that as you're having those conversations, you start to unpack things that you also have forgotten as a child. So if there's like, I read somewhere that when as a child, when there's something that traumatic that happens to you, it puts it at the back of your mind so that you don't remember it. You're only able to remember it once your body and your mind and your soul and everything are ready to deal with them. But when you're not ready, your body will protect you because you're not strong enough for that. So as we're unpacking these things and I'm having this counseling, then I started like, to unpack, a lot of things. And I realized that, wow, for 3 years, I mean, that the counselor couldn't believe it. And she couldn't understand like how I survived and all of that. And she was like, for 3 years, you were in this hole. So yeah, not only just, I found out that I was depressed because of all of that, but there was just a lot of things that I unpacked that I won't go into about my past and my past traumas.
Wow, that's really powerful. Like in terms of like how your life was also, in your journey, starting to find balance. And I guess that's the thing that people always say that, things always have a way of working themselves out. So you found like as much as you were climbing up the corporate ladder and getting that financial growth, but you were finding your spiritual growth and now, your psychological, which is really powerful.
Yeah, definitely.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Colorful Layers podcast. Coming up on Colorful Layers, our guest navigates challenges in the corporate world. Right. So now let's transition into, you got into a space where things were starting to pick themselves up in your life. Things were looking up emotionally, financially, and through that, like, what started happening?
Yeah. So, 2014 is such a great year. Spiritually, I was growing. I met my best friend who's like really, really close to my heart right now. I met my partner in the same year. I went back to school to go do my degree in the same year. I got promoted at work in the same year. So like, it was like, life just like transformed completely. I got my car in the same year. So a lot of things like happened like as soon as I accepted God. And now I work for a global organization, which is also just expanding my my box, which is also something new. So I would definitely say from 2014 until today, like I've just experienced something new. If not every day, if not every month, at least every year, I can look back and be like, yo, I did a lot of new things.
That's
this year.
amazing. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Colorful Layers podcast. The Colorful Layers podcast. Let's move into your career. Obviously, climbing the corporate ladder, it wasn't smooth. There's been challenges, right? And I came across an article by two journalists that's titled "Stop Telling Women That They Have Imposter Syndrome." So they talk about how the fact that the imposter syndrome is considered a diagnosis, they say that it's problematic because it was developed in the 70s. And during the time where they came across this, they didn't even consider women of color's issues. So, I mean, sorry, as people to, interview and they said that they excluded effects of systematic racism, classism, xenophobia, and other biases. So it's funny how, it's taken on this universal feeling for women. And the article then continues to state that, for women of color, issues like self-doubt, feeling that we don't belong in corporate workplaces can even be more pronounced, not because we have an innate deficiency, but because of the intersection of our race and gender that often places us in precarious positions at work. And obviously looking at South Africa's economic situation. So I just want to, chat about some of the challenges that you face as a young Black woman from Soweto.
Sure. So, I mean, I didn't even know that it's now a diagnosis, but I always think that way. And I think that you feel that way because there isn't people that look like you, right? So you feel like you're imposing because, you look around and you don't see people that you can, relate to. That's for me, that's how I look at it. However, really think about this. If I was to walk in right now to a corporate boardroom and there is, let's say it's a group of 10, and of that group of 10, and I'm the 11th person, 6 of those people are Black women, and then maybe two Black male and 2 white male. You will never feel like you're an imposter in that situation. So for me, I mean, taking it back to when I was, promoted into leadership space. When I, joined that team, I was the only one that didn't have a car. And what the reason why I remember that so clearly is because we went on a team building. And obviously, this team building, you have to drive yourself to there. I had to take taxis. I had to find my way and take taxis there. And of course, it's a team building, so it's bring and share. So everyone has to bring something, And here I am in a taxi, and I have these salads, and people just got into their cars and whatever. So it's those little things where you feel like, do I even belong here?
You also mentioned something quite, and I guess it's quite relevant as a South African, is the fact that you didn't necessarily go to the multiracial school. So when you get into the workplace, the language, and the schools. Obviously, you get there. I mean, like I said, I went to schools in Soweto, and I'm a Sowetan. And then, of course, there's certain lingo that that you pick up. As much as there's also lingo, our own lingo is Soweto. There's a certain lingo that we speak. When we're in school. And so do the other people, like from multiracial schools, and they are more exposed and they understand multicultural and different groups. So just having to learn all of that. So here you are in this new position. You're obviously trying to learn the work and thingy your craft. Like you're also just trying to fine tune your craft. But you also need to learn the lingo, the
hey man, all these things, the places that we're gonna go to, like Fridays, they'll be like, yo guys, we had a good week. Let's go out for drinks. I can't go out for drinks. I'm a Texapela. I have to go back to Soweto. So you start being excluded and what's the word? Like they're not doing it on purpose, but it's just your circumstances just exclude you. They exclude you, like so. There's just a lot of things like in that imposter syndrome that it's not just like, oh no, you're a black female. It's just a lot of things. The social, your whether be it you have a car or you don't have a car, or whether you have this or you don't have that, or you have that, or whether you don't understand a certain language, like you don't understand Afrikaans at all. For an example, for me, I don't. Like it's just those things that you automatically get excluded without people even realizing that they're excluding you in those conversations.
So what I really like about your story and admire is that amidst the challenges that you have encountered or gone through, you've been able to persevere, even like on a personal and workspace. So you often hear of stories of how women of color become demoralized and they want to leave the company, or they even feel like they've hit that corporate ceiling and they venture out to go start their own thing. So I just want to find out what has been your secret in terms of being able to keep pushing, the tenacity to keep going, and to also find progress, because you are finding progress.
I think it just goes back to my initial conversation, like really when I started this conversation, and that reminder every single day. When I say every day, I'm not even exaggerating. I'm saying every day, my grandmother, my teachers, whoever used to remind me that you can do anything that you put your mind to. You're super smart. You are this. You're really good at this. You're really, really good at this. And they don't even remind you of your weaknesses. Because yes, I mean, I've got things that I'm really good at. I've got things that I'm really, really bad at. But they really just focused on the good. And they kept reminding me. And I think that built my confidence, or that's what I hold on to. I don't get into a space and feel like, geez, I'm really, really intimidated. In actual fact, I get into a space and I'm like, oh my God, Homoto is doing so well. I'm so inspired. I'm going to go reach out to Homoto. I'm going to ask her how she got there. I'm going to ask her, what is it that she did? She must tell me her secrets. I'm going to use her secrets and see if it works for me. If it doesn't work for me, I'll try another strategy. I literally do that. And I think that has sustained me, in the space. Just always being curious and just always asking and just always being humble enough to ask.
Yeah, well, that's powerful. So, I mean, in our chat earlier, you mentioned that the reason why you want to share this story is obviously because you want to inspire other young Black girls like yourself. So can you just get into that a little bit?
Yeah, I think, I think for me, I would never, encourage anyone to obviously have a child at a young age. But when it happens, it's so important that we remind our young women or men that it's not over. Well, not even just about the child, but when you do hit a speed hump and something really, really, I don't know, happens to derail you from your dreams, it's not over. I mean, this happened 12 years ago. And I know 12 years feels like a long time ago. But if I'm here now, imagine 12 years from now, and how your life can just completely transform. And I think for me, it's really for, abantu abafana nami, abantu who went to schools in Soweto, who all of that, we can no longer make those excuses anymore. We need to take up those spaces. But yeah, I just want to share it with people that are like me, people about Orlando, people who went to the same school as me, people who've had really, speed humps on the way on their journey, that have been so difficult, that have put them and set them back. You can redirect your life. You just need to take the wheel and decide which this is where I want to go, this is what I want to do, and achieve it. Like, the universe has your back. Like,
Amazing.
absolutely has your back. The universe, God, whatever omnipotent you believe in, has your back.
I like when you say, you want to take up those spaces. Like, how you mentioned that as a little girl, you never had like a role model or somebody that looked like you that you could
Yeah.
look up to. But now, you are creating yourself into
Yeah.
people like that person, and so there'll be people like that, that young people can look up to. So thank you again, and congratulations. I think your story is really of triumph, and it makes me feel goosebumps when I hear like some of the things that you've gone through and how much I can relate. But it also encourages me, like how you've persevered and you've pushed through the challenges, and I really just look forward to seeing you reach even higher heights, and just showing young Black women in South Africa and globally like that it is possible. And I think specifically even in corporate, because there is that story of young Black women and just not being able to push through, and you're doing it. So congratulations and well done.
Thank you, Homoto. I think, I think just closing, I saw someone's status this past week, and it made me smile so much. Said something about, you still have so much time to meet people that are going to love you so much. And with that being said, you still have so much time to achieve anything that you want. So no matter how old you are, yes, we do live in borrowed time. We don't know how long we're going to be here. But to go with the fact that there's still so much time. Don't feel like I'm old now. Oh no, if I did now, I'm already old. No, there's still so much time to achieve whatever that you want to achieve, and you can.
Liked the episode, please be sure to show support and leave a comment. A huge thank you has to go out to my guest Berttina Shabala for really just opening up to us on Colorful Layers, and a big thank you to you for tuning in. Please show the podcast support by hitting that like button, and if you are listening on YouTube or Apple Podcasts, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and be sure to leave a comment or review. Catch you on the next episode.